Every moment tests you. Every action defines you. This is the prestigious initiative where mindset becomes muscle and character becomes legacy. I'm Chris Bean, martial artist, coach, and relentless believer in growth. If you're here to sharpen your edge, lead with integrity, and build a life that echoes beyond your years, you're home. You can find the podcast on social media at PrestigiouSPod. You can find me at Chris Bean Official, and the email for the podcast is prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com. This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Bean. Today, my guest is Randall Thames, a coach, a speaker, a pastor, and a veteran executive with more than 35 years of leadership journey. It took him from top track consulting to guiding others in discovering their own superpower. He's the creator in Discover, Develop, and Display, a model and the author of Rise to the Role. Today, we're going to be unpacking how you discover your inner purpose, develop it into fuel, and then display that leadership so that everybody else can see it. Today, we're going to uncover why we're going to do these things together and help you realize those things. Randall, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
So, Randall, why would somebody want to listen to our conversation here today?
I think it's, as you stated, it's a process. It's, a lot of people understand externally who they are, but oftentimes internally, they don't understand that there is what I call that internal super purpose power that resides within them. And many people go about their day in activities and don't have a sense of their identity. And so the Discover, Develop, Display process really helps to unpack that inner super purpose power so that when you're operating in your identity, whatever's happening around you, it could be chaos, it could be something going on at the job or not having a job, it could be familial issues, whatever that might be, when you're operating in that super purpose power, it's something that really stands the test. And so the reason why I think someone may want to pay attention today is, how do you get to really internally find that super purpose power?
Well, okay. So what are some early experiences that help to point that there even is that internal superpower? And can you tell me that the moment that clicked for you?
Yeah, I'll take you all the way back to when I was around 9 years old. And I preferenced this in the book, Rise to the Role. And when I was 9, it was baseball was a big thing where I grew up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I did not get picked for the league. I actually waited by the phone and no calls. And so, my parents did a little bit of nudging. And the day after all of the selections, they called one of the coaches who happened to be a family friend, and he said, I'll make a spot for him on the team, but only have the number 13. And that's the only number I have available. And so I was really bummed out because, 13 was something that, back at the time, that was a sign that you really, that was a bad luck number. Fast forward, I had the opportunity to get on the team wearing number 13. I was an average athlete at best. But what I found is when given the opportunity, which I did, I found that through discipline and consistency, I was able to take what I had, which was I was able to run fast. Couldn't play baseball that well, but I took what I had, which was that internal drive, and I created through discipline, consistency, a value, which was that super purpose power. And that super purpose power allowed for me in that 1 year to go from being the last pick to that next year becoming an all-star. That's where it started for me. Okay. The idea that the discipline could get you to where you need to be.
You said value, and value is something that's really interesting to me because as society puts it, I think society has value wrong. And let me back that up a little bit, because I think that society sees value as honesty and integrity and those type of words. For me, I see those as morals and honesty and integrity, all of those things, courage, those things are great morals to have, things that you should live by. Absolutely. But values, there's a disconnect there because so for value, really what we think about is money because values and money is connected together. What is the most valuable commodity that we all have is time. So the way we
Absolutely.
spend our time really is where our values lie. And the problem is most people, number one, they don't necessarily understand that connection, at least as I understand it, or at least as I see it. And then the next part is if somebody asks, do you have values? They say, yes, honesty and okay, well, let me push in a little bit more. Those value is how you spend your time. And if you could live a life that was in line with your values, where you spend your time wisely on the things that you actually value, that's a different. So my question for you, I guess, is out of all that, values for you, how do you associate with values? What does that look like for you?
So let's create and let's take that value path down the discover, develop, display, right? First, it has to be, and even before that, it's a decision. It's a decision that you are more than what the world defines. So let me plant that in everyone because the world so often dictates to us what we should or think about. So if we take a value path down the discover trail, let's look at how you discover your values is self-assessment. Really taking a self-assessment in terms of what it is that creates a unique difference in you from everyone else. And everyone has that ability. That's the discovery part. Once you do a self-assessment, and that can be done through psychometric testing or even quite honestly asking your closest friends and stakeholders, then once you discover that difference or the value you have, then you need to develop it because talent alone is not going to get you very far in life other than that short-term, situation. The develop part is really taking and harnessing that so that your value can be something that some people monetize it. Some people take it and some people make a career out of it. Some people use it so that they can be a unique differentiator in the lives of others. That's the develop part. Then the display is, and I just mentioned it, really showing and giving it as a gift to the world. Giving your value as a gift to the world is something that, at the end of the day, that is probably one of the greatest gifts that you can give. Certainly, Chris, you talk about money and value. I would also say, and time is the great equalizer. What are you doing with your time to discover it, develop it, and ultimately displaying it?
Okay, as I'm listening to you talk about this, it is I see a connection to some biblical instances, right? And so, can you share a little bit about that connection that I'm sensing? Maybe I'm over sensing it, but I see it definitely a connection there that is laid out to us from in the Bible through the Word about how we can discover these things, whatever that thing is for you, discover it, develop it, and then to put that onto display. Can you talk about that connection there?
Yeah, I mean, so many instances. One off the top of my head is, and thank you for that. As you know, you stated, I am a pastor, and so I do have and provide biblical undertones. Although I don't beat people over the head with it, it's there. So let me use the example of Saul in the New Testament for those that are not familiar. And Saul was a zealot, and meaning essentially had great passion for what he believed in. And he used this passion or zeal to persecute Christians. And in doing that, he participated in many acts that one would consider is, just at that time, murder. Let's just put it plain. In particularly the murder of Stephen, and because it was stated in the Bible that he was actually there. So if you take Saul and the zeal that he had, he was God used him in a way such that the discovery part really created an opportunity for him to literally have his eyes opened to what his value truly was. And in that moment, that instant, that flash, Saul, who became ultimately the Apostle Paul, who ultimately wrote 3/4 of the New Testament in the Bible, created an opportunity on the discovery of his path in understanding that his value and his zeal or his talent was being developed not necessarily to persecute, but to promote Christianity. And so we take the persecution to promotion, and then the display is the Apostle Paul ultimately traveled all over at that time, that part of the world, and spoke and preached and taught what his value had been developed to do. And so in doing that, we take that path of the discover, understanding what your value is, the development through, and sometimes people get it really turned around in developing. It's going to be hard work because Paul at that time really had gone through persecution himself. And so it's not an easy task to develop it. But I always say, do hard things until the hard things become easier, not easy. They will likely never get easy. Hard things in life don't get easy. And I also apply this to fitness because that's one of the tenets that I teach and talk about within my coaching process and the book. And so you got to do those hard things until they become easier through your discipline and consistency. They will not get easy, but easier.
And really, those hard things are there for us to grow and learn from. And if we're not accepting those challenges or seeing those challenges that are there, or the challenges that we've put there on purpose, talk about fitness, to get up and be able to go to the gym, to be able to identify or see ourselves as somebody who does those things, to be able to see us as somebody who accepts those challenges and faces those head on and does them, as opposed to shies away from them. That is our opportunity to grow outside of our comfort zone. And I like that, like, you don't necessarily want that hard thing to become easy. You want that hard thing to be there so that it is a consistent reminder that you are capable of doing hard things.
Absolutely. And another biblical reference is the Apostle Paul talks about how he trains his body so that he too may be able to qualify for the prize. And that prize is actually it's coming forward and being the best version of yourself. And so I ask and I challenge people, and again, it's in the Rise to the Role book. I ask people, what is it that you want to create as far as the best version of yourself? And so we look at focus areas. And so we take these focus areas and we say, what do you want to prioritize? Where do you want to come out and display, discover, develop, and display it? What do you want to display to create the best version of yourself?
All right. Now, Randall, I know that you talk about having a super purpose.
Yes.
For the listeners that maybe don't know what that is, can you give me a brief overview of what you mean by super purpose? And then how does that differ from a personal mission or passion?
So let's start with the end in mind. The super purpose and the super purpose power, and I'll give you my example, is you end with you create outcomes and impact. And that's ultimately when you know that you're creating outcomes and impact for others, that's when you can get a validation that you're operating in your super purpose power. So let me give you a statement. And this is kind of my North Star, my mission statement. And this is why I came up and retired from, as a senior partner for one of the world's leading global leadership development firms and created an institute so that individuals and organizations can holistically create this. And so here's my mission. It is to provide both insights, experiences, and data that will inspire a cognitive reshaping, which is a mindset shift that will ignite a decision to discover, develop, and display everyone's super purpose power. And that ultimately creates outcomes that will impact everything around you. Now, that's a mouthful. So, I can slow it down if you want, but that's essentially what it is. I create that through the insights. So we got to start with the insights, right? We got to start with the experiences. We got to start with hardcore data and information because I can speak it, but we want to have a validation through all of those, the data points. And then once that's spoken, that's providing the insights and the experiences. Then you want to inspire. So you have to, that's the outside world, the data. Then you inspire, which is, that's where that internal mechanism has to be activated. And having that internal mechanism activated, that will inspire a reshaping or a cognitive reshaping, or you're rethinking it. Because in order to be it, you got to think it. Then once you reshape yourself, then you get to work. And that's where, I have folks work with me, my clients, where we discover, develop, then display it. And then the outcome of that is the outcomes of your super purpose power, because that's what's uncovered in there. And that creates impact for everything.
Okay, I really like the outcomes and impact, especially as you couple that with being able to inspire, because what that does is that pre-frames people to move past themselves and put the outcome, the impact that they're having in other people, and especially inspire as well. And I think inspire is such a strong word as it connects to those things, because you want to inspire people through the outcomes and the impact that you're having on their life and through whatever realm that is. And I can also see that you have a great awareness for yourself and how you are impacting and inspiring other people. And when I say awareness, I don't mean like meditation, but awareness meaning you are aware of how you're coming across to others. I can tell already you're very, very careful about the word choice that you're doing. You're very careful about the message that you are conveying to the people that are listening. I'm gonna sit on awareness for a second. On that awareness, what are some tools? Because I think that is something wildly helpful as it relates to the outcomes, the impact, and being able to inspire other people. You have to be aware of what you're doing. You have to be able to design the message that you're sending out to have that impact to the other people, to be able to inspire the other people. But if you're not aware that a message is being sent out, then one, you're failing drastically across a number of different things. So being aware that there's a message that's being sent out, and then being able to design that message for an intended outcome, which is that impact and the ability to inspire other people. If somebody wanted to design their awareness to have that sort of impact, what am I looking at for something like that? I know that's that's a weird question, but
no, this is great. And so this is where I will take that question, and I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you. I would say we are the architects of our destiny, and we are the architects of how our ecosystem is created. So if you look at if you look at your 3 to 5 closest friends and or people you surround yourself with, then that's the reflection of who you are. So how do you design that awareness? I go back to, it's providing information and insights and experiences to create a level of self-awareness. And so if we look at those things, the data points around us, they're there. We just have to really purposefully go in. So let's say, again, I mentioned psychometric assessments. There's so many out there. The PDI, the Logan, all of those 360s, actually, where you go and you do a stakeholder engagement, or you go interview essentially the people in your world and ask, what do you see and what do you get when you get this person, right? So it's creating all of those things. Myers-Briggs, that's another one, where you get that data in insight, and then you take that data in insight, and you have to, and I would suggest, this is a little bit of self-promotion, work with someone to help architect and blueprint that level of awareness once you get it, because you need to be able to make sure that you systematically operate from that data, insight, and awareness, and then take that and develop a plan and be very purposeful about that plan. This is what the results say you are, who you are. So now we want you to discover who you think you are, measure that against what all of the data is saying you are. Now let's develop a plan and a roadmap. That's where I get the architecting blueprint so that you can take that awareness and really push that out so that it goes, it's an inside outside job, right? It's the inside of who you are manifested and executed externally so that you can have an impact on everything else.
And really the first part of that process is knowing who you are internally, because oftentimes
Absolutely.
we think about ourselves as in one way, but often that's not the way that other people actually know that we are, because we think about ourselves as much different than what we actually are. So having that data, doing one of those tests, the Myers-Briggs or whichever one you choose, to have that data
Yeah,
point to know where you're starting from, then you can walk down whatever the path looks like for you. But you have to know where you're starting from and then have an idea of where you want to end before you can lay that groundwork to be the blueprint to that discovery.
absolutely, Chris. And I say that's the launch pad. And here's where I think a lot of folks are misguided because social media and other forms are creating a launch pad or a self sense awareness of who people are because they're measuring not their personal super purpose power, but what others are saying theirs are. And they're saying, oh gosh, I can't compete with that. But there's a false sense of, what is going on out there. And that's why I get to there's a difference between the activities that many live and their true identity. And that's why I say everyone has, so if nothing else, all our listeners should understand there is a super purpose power in all of us. You just have to discover it, develop it, and then, my gosh, let's go ahead and display it to impact everything.
Now, Randall, in Rise to the Role,
Yeah.
so we're just talking about outcomes, impact, and being able to inspire other people.
Mhm.
What is the outcome or the impact that you want to have from your book?
So I want to give everyone an opportunity to say, and particularly, we have trends where the world is saying that we're identified by our jobs, and there are many people that are impacted that may not have a job, or their role on their job may have decreased significantly or changed, or there is a threat of them not having a job, and so rise to the role, when we talk about role, it's not just a traditional role as far as a job or even necessarily a career, but what is your role in life? Now, in a very practical way, I do case studies in terms of executives who have had journeys that have gotten to where they are or are still on those journeys. And so we take and we break open these case studies and really dissect them to see how these people who are successful in their role, and again, we're defining role beyond the job, though many are successful in their jobs, multimillionaires or people who have ascended to CEOs, but it's really taking a glimpse as to their path to get there. And it's a very practical way to see yourself in whatever role you have. And it could be, working the floor, working the line. It doesn't have to be in the C suite. You can get there too. And so it talks about fighting different dragons, the dragons in life, the enemies of life, and taking those dragons and really going to battle with them and ultimately overcoming them.
All right. Okay. Couple of things that really struck me there is you talked about the role, not necessarily just in your job, but as you are in life. And I think that is really profound because we get so stuck in our head that we
Yeah.
are that role that we fulfill at work. That is us. But that's not us. That's something that we do. So being able to
Right.
pull out of the work sphere and move into just the person and leave that person as the human and see that person as a human who does lots of things and who fulfills a role at work, but they are not that role, I think is profound. And you actually just said something that I thought that was really interesting. You talked about dragons. And so dragons mythologically are really interesting because the dragon is hiding the treasure, right? Whether that's the princess,
Yes.
whether it's the pot of gold. And oftentimes in the story, the town has to turn to the knight in shining armor to go and save the princess, or to get the money back to the villagers. And they rely on that person, that shining knight in shining armor, to go and face the dragon, to face that challenge head on, to do
Yes.
that with intent and purpose and deliver something on the back end. And I think that if we can use that story as a basic framework to how we interact with life, I think is profound, because then we understand that life is full of challenges. And
Yes.
we see our goal, and if you can't see, I'm just doing a straight line from bottom to top here. We
Yep.
see our goal, our path, as one linear path, but we know God has all sorts of plans for us that we cannot perceive or know at any given point. And that the linear path is anything but linear. And we have to be willing to stand firm on the ground that we have when we're faced with those challenges. And those challenges are going to be there. And those challenges you can see as one thing, as oh, well, this means I'm not supposed to do this. This is God's way of telling me I'm on the wrong path. Okay, but then the other way that you can see that is, this is God giving me an opportunity to reconfirm my belief, my desire to go and accomplish this thing. And then you defeat that dragon, and you're good
Mm.
for a little bit. Then there inevitably there's going to be
Okay.
another dragon. But what that does is that gives us a sense of accomplishment when we encounter those inevitable challenges. Am I reading too far into that, or did I get that?
Not at all. Not at all, Chris. You nailed it. So, taking from the popular movie, how to tame your dragon. Everyone has them, and so I think beautifully displayed, the process. And you talked about standing firm. There's a Bible scripture, 1 Corinthians 16 in 13. It says, "Be on your guard." And again, we're talking in the context of taming your dragon. Be on your guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be men and women of courage. Be strong. And so if we look at, those commands, being on our guard, standing firm in the faith, and being strong, then we are understanding that as we tame our dragons, we are equipped. So again, here's where we get that internal super purpose power that equips us, that enables us to do all of those things, to fight off the dragon, and then to fight again, and then to fight again. And again, that's part of the Rise to the Role book excerpts, where we talk about how people, and there's not just one unique dragon. There are several, and there goes. I have one chapter dedicated to absolutely just going into the different, just a few descriptions of what dragons we face in life, in both on our jobs, in our roles as people on jobs, people at home, people on the field for performers and athletes, people in every walk of life.
Well, and I really like the idea of taming our dragon. So it's
Yeah.
not just the idea that we have to go and face this primordial mythical beast, but on top of that, then we have to tame that dragon. And taming the dragon then brings into light that I'm bringing this dragon with me. And it's almost like, as I'm imagining this, it's almost like as I go through life, I have a series of I have a series of bigger and bigger dragons that I'm facing.
Yeah.
And then after I overcome them, I have those behind me, and they become kind of the driving force in order for me to continue facing the next dragon that's inevitably bigger and bigger and bigger. And the the other thing about that is taming your dragon. That means that reminds us that humans, we are not perfect. Jesus was perfect.
Mm,
We were all fall short of that perfect example that he laid for us. You think of biblical stories like Moses in Exodus, where he didn't have the ability to be the mouthpiece that he needed to be. So he was given Aaron, his brother, who he didn't even know about, that acted
right.
as the mouthpiece so that he can talk to the people. And that is a reminder that even though we are flawed, even though we have these dragons that are within us, we can tame them. We can do something about that, and then we can move and grow from there.
Absolutely. So thank you for introducing. So in the story of Moses, there's that part of his life after 40 years, the prince Moses, not the prince of Egypt Moses, but the shepherd who had been out for 40 years, was approached by God, and God spoke to him, and God actually, and we sometimes think we have to have big fancy messaging, but God simply told him when Moses said, I don't know how to lead these people. As a leader, I stutter, I do all of these things. And specifically, what if the people don't believe me? And God's response is, what is in your hand? And so we have to do and that goes back to the part of a self-assessment. We have to see that the power is in our hands. It's actually there. And Moses had a staff, and the power of the staff ultimately led to leading a nation. I challenge everyone to say, what is in your hand that you can use, that you absolutely have an equipped power to do greater things than you could even imagine?
Now, Randall, the phrase comes up, inevitable outcomes. And
Yes.
I think that is such a compelling phrase. And I want to know how does that mindset change the way that people show up in their everyday leadership? Inevitable outcomes.
Yeah, and so I actually we went back and forth with myself and the folks that helped editing the book, because there was that they challenged me on that inevitable outcomes, because is anything ever inevitable? And so I say you make it so. Being inevitable is essentially if you do the diligence, the work, and creating opportunities. You never stop until you can't anymore. That's the process. And if you thoroughly work the process and work the process and continue to work the process, a stone can be transformed by simply the dripping water. And if we we don't have to do it big, fancy. We don't have to have one big flash and say, this is how it's done. We have to simply continue to work and work the process. It will ultimately become inevitable that there will be an outcome. Is the outcome something that is predetermined? Maybe not, because in the course of working through these things, you discover and pivot until it is revealed to you what that thing could be, should be. And so getting back to inevitable outcomes, it is the outcome, or the impact, and I'll use the word impact, that you have imparted on both yourself and everything around you. And that's the outcome. And it will be inevitable if you follow and work the process.
And that comes back to the discipline that we have to be able to follow the system, whether that's a system that is helped to be crafted or designed by somebody else like yourself, the coach that's bringing us into that, or a system that you have already that you. So I think everybody has discipline on some level. Everybody has some system on some level. The way that you maybe are interacting with that right now is not giving you that inevitable outcome that you want, because it's not getting you to where you want to go. You have some sort of system. It just isn't the system that you want or need that's serving you best right now. But if you can come at that with some discipline and follow the system,
Mm.
inevitably you're going to have the outcome that's going to be designed, that's going to be there because you did it with purpose and intent. That was the roadmap, the blueprint that was designed. And then all you have to do is put action in to follow that in order for that outcome to be inevitable.
Yes, and I love that you introduced the word system, because now we're talking about, spilling again in a little bit of my world in 35 years of corporate America and working in systems and systems of operation. And those systems of operation, they can be influenced through, number one, a vision. And a vision deferred is just a dream. Once you have the vision, then you have to create those data and insight points that will help that vision become a reality. You apply a process to it, then you apply that purpose to it. Then, as a leader, then you take it out to your followers so that they can understand, number one, your vision, the data behind the vision, the process to get to the vision. So there's that sequence, right? So there's the internal thing first, then you take it out to the followers. And once they see, okay, and they see the path, because as a leader, you got to clear the brush, you got to clear the path. So it may not be as clean and clear as a leader, but once you get to the followers, they can see where they can go. And then you take them there through that system, the vision, the process. And as the leader, you have to have the discipline to continue to clear the brush to ultimately get to that outcome.
Well, and as the leader too, I think that something that a lot of people, a lot of leaders miss is that vision piece and their ability to share that with the followers. They
Yeah.
have a vision, but they keep that in their head. And they tell the followers, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. But there's a disconnect because
Yeah.
the leader has the vision and the followers have the system, but there's no connection between the two, at least as it relates to the followers. And so if you are the leader and you're listening to this and you have that vision and you're trying to get the followers to enact that vision and they're having some struggles, let them know what the vision is, because once you know where you're going, it's easy to continue that path. But if you don't know where you're going, okay, I'm going to use Moses again. You have that Red Sea in front of you. We're stuck. We can't get to the other side. You have to have the leader that's able to part the sea in order to lead everybody down to get to the other side. But that leader has to set the path and then bring the followers in on that vision in order for the followers to do the following.
Absolutely. And mind you, he used the staff that was in his hand to part that Red Sea. And so it's applying your super purpose power, right? And that's the application of a super purpose power, him using the staff and parting the sea, which is the journey and the system to get to where they needed to go. And the followers, once you are able and enable people to see where you want to go, that's also a superpower that you can exercise on others. And if they have a glimpse of the vision and the process to get there, that's so important. Because I often find working with leaders and visionaries, there's a high level of frustration. I say, "You're frustrated, right?" They said, "Yes." I say, "Why are you frustrated?" "No one gets where I want to go." I said, "Is that on you or on them?" And so it's incumbent upon us, because it seems like it comes so easily. If you look at an athlete, Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, or a basketball player analogy, but it's an easy one. So they would often get frustrated at their teammates because they not only had the gifts and the talent, but the vision to know where they wanted to go, versus some of the talent of their teammates didn't necessarily see that vision. Therefore, there was a high level of frustration. But then they understood, in order to have outcomes that everyone wanted and create impact, they had to make the vision plain. And once you're able to do that, then you can have your followers see it, operate in it, and have success for all.
Well, and that goes back to discover, develop, and display, right? We need
Yep.
to, as the leader, you have to discover what the vision is for yourself. You need to
Yep.
develop it in such a way that is able to be easily transmuted to not only just yourself, but to the followers that
There
you
you
have, to
go.
the employees that you have, and then you can put all of that on display through that same method.
Absolutely. And so there you go. And that discover, develop, display, that model can be applied to so many different things. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a structure model that I say you go from concept. So the concept is conceived. Then you make sure that if you reflect, because you want to reflect on, okay, how do I make this concept into something tangible? So concept to reflect to project. And then after you project, you execute. And then you execute, you come up with and you overcome challenges or giants or dragons. So you overcome the challenges after you execute, and then you stay consistent with it. You stay with it.
Now, Randall, you, as somebody who's moved from the C-suite, now you're leading, you're coaching.
Yeah.
You're kind of been a little bit all over the place, and so my here's the question. Okay, as somebody who has led in the C-suite, and now
Mm-hmm.
you turn to coaching and faith, how does that purpose? What is your super purpose as you are moving through these different phases of your life?
It's very simple. I'll go back to my. I have two daughters, wonderful daughters, Maya and Macy, and a wife, Trina. And my daughter Macy, at the age of 10, actually she pulled this out at the age of 10, and I have it written on my wall here. She said, "My dad inspires. He inspires me and everyone around him." And as I was looking at like a self-assessment, a discovery process for my life, I actually had a little bit of an epiphany. This is probably about 15 years ago. So in my life, again, corporate America, but I also am a certified fitness trainer. And so I did that part time. I wake up in the morning and go teach a fitness class, 5 to 6:30 a.m. and then go to work full day. In addition to being a fitness trainer, ordained pastor. And so, and then have been for the last 20 years an executive coach, and then also a pastor. And so, to your point, what are all of those things that seemingly like, well, wow, those are different, but they're not. They're actually all coming into the funnel of I inspire people through fitness, through faith. That's where I get family, fitness, fun, faith, finance, field. All of those things, they come into the funnel of my super purpose power is to inspire others to optimize their family, faith, fitness, finance, having fun in their field or career. It's to inspire in those areas. That's it. And so all of what I've done collectively over the last 35 years in corporate, but beyond, it's that. It's simply to inspire people so that they can operate in spirit, which is the name of the firm, in their spirit to discover it, then ultimately develop it if they read a book or work with us, and then display it to the world. And so my work is done if they can have impact in their ecosystem.
Hmm. And because you know the inevitable outcome, then you're able to continue to be disciplined, to put that work in, and continue to execute on that because you know that the purpose of what you're doing. And I'm sure you've have clients that have given you great feedback. And what I found for me personally is that when you have a client that gives you that good feedback and say, hey, you took me from here to there. And it was
Yeah.
so impactful because I know that I couldn't have done that by myself. You helped me do that. You helped me through. And that thing that is the motivation that the coaches need in order to continue doing that. Because sometimes you have these insights and you're helping these people, quote unquote, helping, but there's no feedback. And until you have that feedback, it's like, man, I hope that I'm having some sort of impact. I hope that I'm inspiring these people. But when you hear that even your 10-year-old daughter can say that you are inspiring people, then you know the type of impact and the inspiration that you are giving other people.
Yeah, yeah. And she's 24 now, but she was 10 at the time. But for her to see that at such a young age was really validation for me that it was there for me. And that's part of my self-assessment. That's, going from the concept to reflecting on that. And so, yeah, the validation also at the end of the day, the Institute is a repository for people to have that concept and reflect of their structure. Then we put a methodology and a framework to the structure so that the in spirit will be developed and then displayed. And then, when all of their ecosystem wins because they are impactful, that's when I get the validation that I am inspiring. And so ultimately everyone wins. Now, chemistry is everything. I'm not for all. And I've been, I'm told that. But that's why I chose to really step out of, I call it the corporate treadmill. So I can take this very holistic approach to helping people in life.
Now, Randall, you've helped a lot of people over your time. What are some common barriers that leaders are experiencing or bumping up against that is preventing them from finding what their super purpose power is?
Yeah, it's the traditional imposter syndrome. I'm in this role, but there are elements of this role that I just don't know, how or why. I'm operating this way. And so it's the imposter syndrome. It's psychological safety where people in certain aspects of their life, they can be crushing it in the field or career. But at home, at family, maybe there's something going on. And so, there are different priorities that people really have to sit down and say, what's going to make me the best version of me, and how, when I wake up, the time, because again, time is the best value equalizer. How can I maximize the time to create? And see, some cases, I ask people to write their own eulogy, and it's astounding how one-sided some of these really successful leaders, when they write their eulogy, how much time they actually spent in certain places and spaces. They can have a level of success in one, but when they sit down and really, again, going back to the structure model of concept to reflect, when they reflect on that, there's a big imbalance. And so we want to make sure that there's a level of satisfaction in saying, I want to have a little bit more balance in my life.
Well, it's okay. So it's really interesting you say that, because me and my wife was at a dinner for a company. I'm not going to say what it is because it wasn't. Anyways, the CEO of the company was up there talking about how he spent all this time building this company and doing all of these things to get the company to where it is today, which is pretty successful.
Yeah.
But he did that all. It was really interesting that he shared this. It was weird for me to conceptualize. So he talked about that on one hand,
Yeah.
and on the other hand, he talked about how doing those things means that he had to miss out on his daughter's tennis games, and he didn't go to the daughter's tennis. But as he was doing this, he was doing it in such a way that almost seemed like he was proud or championing the fact that he didn't do the family stuff very much,
Right.
or at all, seemingly, but he did lots of the business things, and he was proud of where he got here, and he didn't understand that he should be perhaps not proud or not happy or not satisfied with the lack of time that he spent with his family. But he is up on stage talking about this as if he's wearing it with a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And he's talking to the people, and the people, the sense that, at least the people that I was sitting with, the people that were there were kind of confused, because they said, well, that's not what we want. That's not at all what we want. You're quite literally going in the wrong direction. So being able to reflect, but you also have to be able to reflect with a an opportunity to be humble about where
Yeah.
you went. And then you have to understand the things that you had to miss out on in order to get to that inevitable end that you're at. It just was really, that was such a weird connection that guy made. It was odd. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we talk about inevitable outcomes because, his inevitable outcome from a field or a career standpoint or building the business, he was able to achieve. Here's the thing I like to challenge people on. What in your life have you engaged, enhanced, elevated, and then exited? And so if we, even biblically, so we look at, Paul and Timothy, as he talked about how the Apostle Paul, he enhanced, elevated, and then exited, and was very purposeful about, quote unquote, passing the baton. And when you pass the baton, you can exit so that your legacy continue. And if you do it right, that your legacy continues to, I try to do it with my daughters, right? Or even my wife. And your legacy can continue that elevation while you prioritize on some other things as you kind of reestablish your circle where you engage and then elevate something else. And so you bring other things up to that level. You don't stay, the top of a mountain, the peak is a peak. And at some point, there is the other side of the mountain. And so, how do you keep elevation? Well, you take your peak and then pass it off so someone else can elevate to theirs. And then it keeps going on. So, in the case of this executive, if he's holding on to and very proud of wearing that badge, good for him or her. But you got to also say, and it's not a if, it's an or, it's an and. And these are the other things now that I'm working on enhancing in my life. I think maybe if he would have focused a little bit more, so here's some in-person coaching on that was achieved, and that's great. And now we're going to look to elevate other things. It could be even within the company.
Yeah, the sense that I got from the people that were sitting at the table is there's a misconnection between his beliefs and how he's running the business, and almost like he wants the employees to be able to do those things as well. And by do those things, I mean miss out on their family so that they can grow his business. Interesting. Well, hey, Randall, the discover, develop, and display model that we talked about here today. So groundbreaking, I think. And the other thing is it's also simple. It's a simple framework that anybody can kind of conceptualize and think about how they can apply to find out what that super purpose power is for them. And not just as it relates to their role at work, but their role as a human on this planet, and where they can try to develop those outcomes to have impact and be able to inspire the people that they are working with. And, Randall, as we're getting to wrap up here, do you have any key thoughts or final takeaways that you would like to share with the listeners? And if they wanted to learn more about you, to get in contact with you, what would be the best way for them to do that as well?
Yeah, thank you for that. So we'll start with the last question. It's in spirit, in spirit, institute.com. So www.inspiritinstitute.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Randall Thames, like the Thames River, Thames. And so those are ways that if you have any, if your listeners have any questions, certainly they can follow up through the website, through me, or In Spirit Book is where Rise to the Role, where we talk about the Rise to the Role book, where there is a glide path really for anyone to get some more insight. So here's the final or the parting thought, I would say. It's in you. It's there if you create an opportunity to be very intentional about making a decision and find some space and place, whatever that space and place might be, whatever it might look like, to really assess what is in you so that once you make a decision, go ahead and discover that. And then once you discover it, find a resource to help develop it. And it could be a very, or you don't have to pay for a coach or an author or anyone to really find a level, or even look, hey, go to the book because it kind of gives you some indicators. Then once you develop it, it's not meant to keep for yourself. Display it. Really came up with one of the concept of super purpose power at the grocery store. I was talking to a cashier, and I always walk out with the mindset that everyone has something to offer. And we got into a conversation, and I asked her about, life beyond being a cashier. She was a mother, she was a grandmother, and she said, but my superpower is really having the ability to bring my grandkids and really challenging them to, to do their best. And I said, it can be in something as simple as a conversation. So I would ask and charge you, Chris, and your listeners, go out and just simply ask someone, what is your superpower? And some people may take a pause and think about it, but it creates an opportunity to let the whole world know it's in their spirit and they have it. Just go out and then display it once you find it.
Well, Randall, I want to say thank you again for all of these great insights. And listeners, if this episode resonated with you, share it with a follower or share it with somebody who you think could benefit from it. And be sure to follow, subscribe, and join our newsletter in the pursuit of mastery. Until next time, rise with purpose and lead with intent.